This is Dr. Justina Agnieszka Chevalier. Continuation of provision of proven to work solutions extrapolable to others and self. Now, in prior video I described basic needs are not skippable. A person who suffers because you didn't give toilet paper, the person who suffers because you didn't give chance to use toilet or shower alone, person will hate you, person will remember you, person will attack you, group stalking, harassment. Remember that as police officer, as correctional facility officer, as an inmate. To know that basic need also includes access to toilet, access to shower, the same as all others. Do not impede that by omission or enable all adults not reducing in capacity to pursue that, each for self. Based on need, person in pain first, person in less pain next, person in greatest enthusiasm to use it first, person in anxiety or enjoyed suffering, person goes first, someone else is suffering, person knows who, person runs there. That is now about schedule. Schedule, you tired, you delegate. Provision of goods, provide to the next step. Attires. For attires, order those. Self. Make, put a box in the middle. Make a chip in box. Inmates and officers to have no longer use or impression that those devices make you recite something, for instance, like a schedule, or make you feel like a robot. The inmates, falling pants, no change. Laundry room, provide those items as needed. Provide. If you don't want to do it yourself, provide possibility to do that laundry. Medical care. Person in pain, you run and you ask, are you right now in physical or mental distress that is solvable by contacting or provision of care to someone else? And the person said, yes, I am in distress because the other person over there, for instance, is actually in need, wants to use toilet. And I am angry and banging at the door because that person screams about it and you didn't hear. Instead of restraining, that solves that person's anger. In the other person, that solves the basic needs, non-provision in suffering. Approaching, you ask, did you scream about using the toilet? Yes, sir, I have diarrhea or I need to use it now. Please enable it so that my pants are not dirty. Give me new change. Oh yes, madam, please, I prefer, for instance, male officer because I want to have privacy. Now, when it comes to rivaling, do not impede dreaming or loving or sexual desire from occurrence between inmates, workers, and all of associated personnel. Corroborate and know sexual act happens in reciprocity. And know, any woman pursues a man to remediate that man, to be able to pursue in whatever that man needs, including all others, whoever that man at freedom of all persons possible in the world chooses based on instinct to save life and provide basic needs, always as first to run to, as potential spouse to share a house with. And the same happens for children, existing or will happen for future children, and prefers sex to care for even the sweetest of dogs and children with that person. Basic instinct means person knows that. Something's happening, I don't know where that person is, but I know that I have to run there first, because out of 100 persons of opposite gender and same gender, that person I'm worried always, the most. And this is not from empowering the person to pursue me, but it is to empower that person to pursue me because I, for example, love that person the most, and that is also obtained in visions of reciprocity of lovemaking and love for that person, impeding daily activities, for instance, in pleasure, or in grief when that person and that other person do not have children. And that is to determine, like I've said before. And now, rivalry. I, walking around, came up with this modification of Eminem's song. to win over that woman, outrun me in goodness, outrun me in goodness, outrun me in goodness. To win over that man, outrun me in love, outrun me in love for that man, outrun me in love. Outrun all the parents, outrun all the children. This is how you will assure that you win competition, being most loved in the world. And you don't impede such, you see, because that sets up new standard. And that also brings us to masturbation. There is sometimes in persons need to explain. We do not label persons as hypersexual, sick, or excessively per default aroused. There's no exception. Another person that person loves is ashamed to admit or unable to pursue that relationship or assumes that is not the case. Explain that it is, and explain that the other person needs to know about it to take decision at freedom, not in accusations, but at freedom to choose from all of existing relationship, own and memory of all of existing relationship, that other person to pursue. And that brings us now to gay relationship. If females pursue and feel desire to other females, or males to other males, like inmates or in monasteries, or in correctional facility, if you are a worker there or superior, in all honesty, ask yourself during the day, most of the day, who I am, and make a list like I've explained, in love with, and fantasize that that person in reciprocity loves me. And then do not disguise that as authority and in some misguided favor offer somebody else. Or assume that that is actually a favor to self, not to do it, because you've labeled desire or manifestation of such, which I've explained in few videos, as a sickness, drug addiction, homelessness, or an inability to perform work. Get real. Somebody that loves you is unable to work as much as you are unless you are appearing. So disable those kind of crimes, not self from pursuit of happiness or that person. Second, do not insinuate that if that person does not feel that way, because we all have many life markers. So for instance, if my mother, I'll give you an example. My mother, in all of her generosity, would give me car to drive it whenever I felt like it. Trusting me, giving me keys and drive it. And now, for instance, I have a husband or a boyfriend or a friend. And he says, car, you can dream about a car. I'm gonna drive my car, you cannot have one, and maybe if I feel like it, I'm gonna give you a ride. That person then in love for me does not outmatch my mother. And the goal is now, the person cannot accuse my mom of being too loving, not being able to match that standard. The person needs to outlove me in comparison to my mom and all of past loves and boyfriends, and vice versa, to deserve that freedom of mind and body and mind in alignment, to pursue mutual sexual act in no obstacle and wanting one another as a sole source of children and sole source of sex for life, as opposed to exhaustion or any other feeling that it is a burden, thrill as opposed to a burden. And so that is when you do harm, hide, disguise, or ruin reputation of others, you do yourself this favor, because that person will fear or will pursue, in fact, a remediation by harming, which creates a vicious circle. And how do we know that? Well, if you feel intense urge to delegate all, as long as that person loves you back, ask yourself, as an adult, is that person opposite gender? If such, is that person the one that you fantasize about making vows or having sex with and having a child of? If only possible, and if not possible, you would waive all of other person's company, including that loving mother, to spend time and be with that person in absence of work. Ask yourself and you will know. Then only if mother is suffering, for instance, unable to provide for herself, you will run there like I used to the airport to pursue her well-being. Otherwise, you will not actually be feeling such emotion and such urges, because she has right to be independent, emancipated, and provide that status all the time and have her own personal relationship and loving ones, and if wanting to, delegating to the most desired and loved man, and vice versa. Be it a father or not. And the same also for all of friends and animals is true. Next, we have to talk about what to do when that urge occurs. Yes, you can provide a bathroom. If you have an impression as a man that this is as if you were making love or you are jerking off in another bathroom, excuse me for that expression, you kind of are doing a disfavor not declaring or pursuing that female in hopes that what is in mind in own goodness and pursuit of that person's well-being as opposed to harm of others, or disguising that person as unworthy to not pursue later on, saying, oh no, maybe not, because after all not, doubting enough. Pursue that person, and then that will, like I said, in that mirror and pursuit of the declaration in mutual relationship, eliminate crimes from passion. And also pursuit of disparities at harm of others that generates fear. Fear and being actually, to the degree of being impeded from why others are able to pursue relationship, resentment. And so that is now, I've covered basic needs, medication. When persons are in severe painful distress, telling you, I need something to alleviate pain, because, for example, I feel like I want to die, literally, if you don't give me an antidepressant or something. I have an urge to rip off the entire building, and I cannot contact the other person who probably is suffering but is married right now and is a politician and speaks somewhere and is probably never gonna happen. So apart from placing a plan, using detective, the list, establishment of addresses, establishment of in truth pursuit of happiness, reduction of family violence in those famous families, to have the other spouse who is on allowance allowed to cheat and then punished for it by violence, pursue independent life on the same standard or own relationships in freedom as preferred. And doing so, you improve happiness in that whole area. And then you use judgment. You provide chance to have masturbation and things like that, or you provide a non-offensive pursuit of maximum relationship that is always, unless you're harmed, for instance, or in pain, non-remediating one and non-remediatable one, and does not use men or women who you do not wish to in orgasm pursue a child and it is mutual as substitute, and you don't then offend by offering such. So to seek such solutions prior, so that persons are free of those bodily impressions and not accused of any inherent incapacity, because it does offend also women to accuse men that they cannot, for instance, provide shelter for men because we kind of have urge to have sex. That is not true. You need to love that person in reciprocity. Imagine college campus. I remember it. Imagine how it was when you were children, and ask yourself, apart from this immature state of pursuit of some degree of physical contact, how many times, even when you were at most loving, most desirous, did you even dare to kiss a person? It is rare when we are all at the same state. And if it is not so, we pursue to remediate and enable person in freedom to pursue whoever that person prefers. Assume that first. And in second, we pursue to declare love and make that person explicitly aware of pursuit of that person's well-being above of all others, in actual appearance of such occurrence in that person. When harmed and in luxury, we pursue provision of everything to, in acceptance, have that person's reciprocity as a given, and combined with declaration of love of that person in public and assurance of desire. Yes, he wants my child because he wants me to keep all those things, for instance. That's an example. Do not reverse roles. And remember, that will reduce sexual harassment and rape. Unblock phone, enable reporting of such instances, and interventions that are truthful. Officers lie often, and that become assurance of safety. The persons that are immature and mature and in love and not share rooms and are fine with one